everybody. Welcome back to the Exchange Podcast. I am Chris Daviar. This is my co-host, James Uplifting Edwards. And today we got an awesome guest, somebody who I personally consider to be one of the best men, best person, one of the best, coolest persons I've ever met in my life. Had the pleasure of working with him before, too. This is Tim Dougherty, the owner of Project Lean Nation. So Tim, man, I know you personally, and I could sit here and talk about, you know, how well I know you, but for the audience, for people listening, can you explain a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do now with Project Lean Nation?
Yeah, with well, who I am is Tim Dougherty. What I do with Project Lean Nation is I took my passion for health, and we have evolved that into a nutrition company that we are trying to scale nationally. So we franchise the business model, and I'm kind of going through the growing pains of trying to create a consistent brand with continuity and developing a vetting process that helps me align with the kind of people I can win with, for sure. And it keeps me pretty busy. When I'm not doing that, I'm a father. I have a passion for fitness and my faith, and pursuing knowledge in all things.
That's crazy.
Right.
You know, it's cool, dude, Tim, because so with these podcasts, I like to kind of prep a little bit. Like I'll go through like a little list of like some questions or some topics. And for you, like I started writing and I was like, dude, if I don't stop now, like I just, for me personally, I know you and you're just an open book of knowledge and just motivation like all the time. So like I found myself, I'm like, dude, I could just keep going with all this stuff I want to ask Tim about. So yeah, no,
filling my sails a little.
Yeah, before we keep going into it, thanks again for coming in here. I'm really excited to talk to you. So before Project Lean Nation, like if we take you back, years and stuff like that, can you explain to us a little bit about like, kind of what got you your foot in the door in that? Like, you weren't always into nutrition as much as you were with Project Lean Nation when you started it. So like, can you tell us about some other careers maybe you had, or maybe even some jobs you had growing up? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I kind of had a misguided youth, grew up fatherless, trauma, misguided. And I was always kind of pursuing things in life. I have this condition in my heart where I always wanted more.
Yeah.
And at a young age, I got involved in health and fitness, and that I think really set me up to win in some things, meaning that I started to be okay without that instant gratification. And growing up fatherless, I really clung to men in my life. So God has provided some really amazing men in my life, the perfect mentor at the perfect time at every stage of my life. So when I was 22, I was going to college. I failed out of college because I was focused on, I got involved in selling cars, which was really exciting to me. And really what was most exciting to me was I was around these men. They gave me 1 ounce of belief and they unleashed me. And that working hard for them and feeling that reward trumped everything that I was focusing on in school. I've never really been a student of school, more of a student of life. And that was a trap in itself, because I didn't do well in school. I didn't think I was smart. But when I found things that interest me, there wasn't anything I wouldn't do to learn them. I say that to say this. I met a man and he led me to a business where I raised money for public companies. So as a guy that was coming from less than, I felt less than. And I got involved in a business where I could raise money for public companies, and I was starting to get my name known. But outside of that, I was getting resources. So I had a huge influx of cash in my mid-20s. And, I just really didn't know how to handle it. And I handled it the worst possible way. And even though I was learning and I was doing business, I was out there spending my money in efforts to leverage the credibility of other things. Like I would buy a Porsche so I could tell the world I had value and leverage Porsche's credibility because in my heart, I didn't feel I had value. So it took me a long time to sort that out. That career ended up leading me to a place where my pursuit of finance, now I had children, right?
Yeah.
So I could mask my addiction to consumption of capitalism as me just grinding for my kids. And the truth is I compromised my integrity and put myself in a position that ultimately led me to federal prison. And for me, that was, over 900 days away from my wife and children. So that stung, but It gave me a new appreciation. Something happened in me. I had a shift in my heart. So I'd always been pursuing my faith. But when I did things my way, it didn't lead me anywhere good. And so I found myself in a spiritual battle, essentially. I abandoned my faith because I thought, because I went to church on Sunday during all this, that I shouldn't be in this position. But
Of course.
everything I prayed for in life, I prayed for confidence and belief and understanding, and I prayed for my anxiety to go away. I just didn't really love what was gifted to me to learn that. So
Yeah.
I had to go away. I had to go away for a season. And that gave me a new appreciation for what an hour meant to me. Nothing I faced in there was anything I thought it was going to bring adversity. I thought I was going to be, I went to a place, it wasn't a great place, and I thought it was going to be clanging and banging, and that was limited. But the things that were really difficult is when, like, your daughter turns 3, or your mom gets sick, or these things really broke me. So I fell in love with reading, and I abandoned the idea that I was ever going to attach my identity to something that could be taken from me. And the only two things that can't be taken from me is everything, my ability to learn and my faith. So I just went all in on that.
Man.
That leads me to when I came home. So I paid my debt to society. I paid my fines.
Yeah.
When I found myself walking out of prison, I thought that I would have a new feeling, but the only feeling I had was shame and guilt.
Of course.
And I wouldn't tell anybody. I put a smile on my face and let everybody believe that I was good, but it was so debilitating that I couldn't look people in the eye the same way. And in my season of prayer and trying to reacclimate myself to be a father, and at the time I was a husband, and it took me 90 days to get used to being in prison. It took me a year to get used to being home, and that had further intensified my anxiety, or I'm going to call it my condition in my heart that felt not right. And so after that, that shame was really, really weighing on me, and I needed to find something to do where I felt like I was serving somebody. So I always worked out. A couple of my friends were interested in that, and for the first point in my life, I wasn't impressed by what they were impressed by. Because when I came home and I still had stuff and a motorcycle in my garage and all this shit, I didn't give a shit about it.
Yeah.
So I was interesting to them because I was no longer interested in the things they found to be interesting. And so I always made the little 30 meals a week every Sunday. Discipline's always been part of my life because I felt incredibly undisciplined when I was a kid. And I found that discipline gives me freedom in a sense. If I can control all the things that I can control, that gives me a unique ability to have the strength to manage the things I can't control.
That's huge.
So a couple of friends asked me to make their food, and of course I turned them down, but in my heart I just wanted to serve people. So I made the chicken, and I prayed every week that God would open up a door for me. And I didn't realize that at the time, but he was opening the door for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Each week I could bring this little box of chicken to someone's house, and I could, from being ashamed and broken, I soon became a position of wisdom to them. So it wasn't about the chicken. It was about me supporting them through their mission.
Yeah.
Right? And this became my ministry, and that's how it have evolved. And that led me to many other things. I started to build a little business. I was always really into the disciplines of business. I enjoy business. I enjoy every piece of it. But for the first time, it was something that I could truly believe in. So when I spoke to it, it resonated with people because it's been something I've always done my whole life. Like I had to, my mental health didn't always feel great. So again, controlling something like my nutrition gave me the strength to manage other parts of my life.
Yeah, of course.
But that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope that gives you some insight.
That's honestly amazing. And like, I feel you just gave us so much stuff that like, there's a lot I could unpack with that in a lot of ways I wanted to go. But for me, like when I look at Project Lean Nation, if I step out of the fact that I, know you personally, and I look at Project Lean Nation as a whole, from a business point of view, something I see about Project Lean Nation is Project Lean Nation actually provides real value to people's life. It almost sells itself. It provides value and wellness. And oh, I'm sorry. Can you not hear me? You good? I can hear you, or I just can't hear you. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
I got it now.
Okay, you're good. Yeah.
I opened up my phone and it kicked over my phone. My apologies.
You're good, brother. You're good, brother. So what I was going to say about Project Lean Nation from a business point of view, like Project Lean Nation really actually provides people value in their life. It really changes people's lives. And me and James talk about business on this podcast all the time. And something I've personally discovered in my business is the importance of having value, right? And even if it doesn't actually have value, you know, kind of from a business point of view, creating value, right? I mean, every core business should have some sort of value that is presenting to somebody, its customers or its clients or whatever you want to call it. So for me on the outside looking in, like it's so easy to see that Project Lean Nation just absolutely provides value. And it looks like it's something that was just, you know, easy for you. But after hearing you talk about that, I think you kind of answered my question. But, you know, my question was that something that you were always aware of as a business, like that, how important it is for a business to provide value? Or it sounds like this is something you learned on your own, right? Right?
Yeah, for sure. So my self-centered, selfish nature is what drove me to pursue the other things, right? And I saw where that led me. So I made a commitment that I was never ever going to chase the dollar, right? So my goal was to serve others, because it's the only thing that made me feel good. Like I told you, I carried that shame on my back. I chipped away at it 1 ounce at a time through helping other people. And at the end, all that was left was the strength that I had left from carrying that, you know?
Yeah.
And that gave me in that process, I had built a community. So like from the outside in, it looks like, hey, this is a prepared meal company, but really the meal is the tool, you know, it's the ticket to the game. And what I did is try to leverage a team, and which we can talk about how that worked.
Right.
But I had to duplicate myself so I could be support education, and the food is the best tool that we offer. But really,
of course,
what I give people is time, and I give them belief. So everybody makes a decision. There comes a time when the pain associated with fixing something feels like it's less than the pain associated with staying in it. And if I can take that moment and I can get them to really tie that to some vision of themselves, some future vision of themselves, and support them through it, I can get somebody a result. If I can get retention, I get them results. If I get them results, they send me referrals, and that's how my business grows.
Yeah. And, you know, like when I personally relate that to my own business, it kind of sounds like you learned it the right way. Like you learned the importance of value, and you learned these things before you really full scale launched your business, where it was like me personally, I launched my business. I'm not going to lie. All I cared about was money. I just wanted to burn money, as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. And then I had to kind of take a step back and relearn it. I almost learned it backwards compared to where you were, where it seems like you learned the importance of value first. And then you really capitalized on traditional business things like printing out profit and things like that. So, I mean, James, would you agree? Does you think it kind of sound like you kind of learned essentially the right way compared to a lot of other young men in our business ventures and stuff like that?
Well, I would agree, but you said you before you got into trouble, you raised money for public companies, correct?
Correct.
So do you think that gave you some sort of insight on how to launch your business the right way at all?
No, I mean, like
or raise money. I should say.
No. I shared I shared that I was in the car business, and then I was raising money for public companies. Right? Didn't give me any insight on how to raise money. My experience gave me insight on how to share my influence to paint a picture. Right? So like, it gave me the ability to tell Susie that, hey, listen, on the other side of this 40 pounds is everything you want to experience.
Right.
And I would say it with such conviction that you would believe me, because I believed it, because I had the ability to say things with conviction for my selfish nature. Right. So as soon as I could believe in something, it was good. One of the biggest challenges that we had is, as I tried to scale and duplicate my business, I thought that other people could accomplish that same thing. So then it gets into where we had to create our core values and our guiding principles. So then I could have a criteria to hire, fire, or recognize and reward someone for developing into a person that could also support those people, because one person cannot run a business. And the reason the meaningful piece of this, or the impact, was so valuable to me at the time is because I didn't make money. And the only thing I could rest on was that I was helping somebody. So like, Chris, in your case, you know, like, you are restoring people's confidence through the distribution of a product that you really believe in. Right. So I think it's how you frame it in your mind. So if you frame it like,
Absolutely.
hey, I sell t-shirts or I sell coats,
Yeah.
that's one thing. If you frame it like, hey, what I do is meaningful because, then that's how you start generating that meaning.
Yeah.
And you build on that. And then the money catches up.
Absolutely. No, and I have to absolutely give you credit, because me and you had a phone conversation not too long ago, and you were saying some similar things like that. And I absolutely used a lot of that information and implemented it in my own business and stuff like that. And actually, one of the key things that you told me on that phone call that I wanted to share here on the podcast, that was like probably the most simplest piece of advice I ever got, like especially in my most recent adult life. And it was so simple, and it's funny when I say it out loud, but I remember I was expressing to you that I had sort of concerns of kind of, if you want to call it, reverting to an old way or something like that. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something like, I have to do this, but I'm afraid I'm just going to do this. And your simple answer was, well, then don't fucking do it. Like, you're like, then don't fucking do it. And I know that's really simple, but what the way I took that was me being in control mentally, is so important. So I wanted to ask you, because I know you're a physically strong guy. You're in insane shape. I've seen you bench some crazy numbers. Like, you're a physical specimen walking. If anybody sees Tim in another light other than you sitting right there, I mean, you're a beast. But I wanted to ask you, do you think being mentally strong is equally as important? And if so, like, what are some things that you do to strengthen your mind outside of like the basic things of like reading and stuff like that? Like, how important do you think the mental game is?
The mental game is what holds the whole thing together, right? Because when somebody walks into a business where they trade there's a value exchange, right? They trade some hours for some dollars or something like that, right? There's some security in that. When you step out on a limb and take a step of faith, that is gone forever. And with that comes a considerable amount of fear and doubt and all these things. So like in my business, discipline for me is the number one thing. And I generate discipline by doing little tiny things all the time that don't really add up, that don't really seem big in the moment, but are big. So like I wake up, I do a journal, I have a gratitude practice, all these things, because if I wake up and start being a fireman, start chasing the world's fires, at the end of the day, I am empty. And when I'm empty, I can't be anything for anyone. So it's very important to me that I make those investments in myself. And it's hard and it's difficult to make the time. But if I do, it really makes a big impact. And like, it's as simple. Somebody said something to me like this, like, whether you want to do something or not, that really doesn't have shit to do with whether you should do it or not.
Absolutely.
And what happens is, like, you start getting a few people to believe in you, then outside of the mouths you have to feed, I want to make sure if somebody bets on me, I want to do everything in my power to prove them right.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are the things that generate that urgency for me. And as you can expect, if I gave some time away, how do you think I value an hour?
Let's see.
Or if I gave some time away, how urgent, I always feel like I'm 3 years behind at everything.
I love that.
So I'm running hard all the time. And rationally, I know that's not the case, right? But why abandon that kind of thought when it keeps the wheels moving? So
to compliment you on that, you really, truly do. I remember back in the day when me and Maddie worked for you, me and him, when we were, obviously much younger then, but we used to joke with each other. We're like, dude, I've never even seen this fucking guy yawn. Like, I've never even said, I've been working with Tim for hours and I don't even think he's blinked right now. Like, you were just an absolute machine with that. So that kind of like transitions to where I wanted to, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like, is that your overall kind of viewpoint on like time management? I've talked with you about it before, and like, your whole angle on how you view time. Cause it's like, for me, it's the same thing, kind of like what you said, like my daily thing, like I got the, the app here on my phone, the notepad app. And like this thing, I refresh this thing every single night, and I will write down a list of tasks, even small, stupid tasks that you think are like whatever, but I just write them down. And then that, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I have to finish this list. And absolutely every single day I go through every single task, no matter what it is, kind of like you said, and just making sure I get to it. It's like I set this kind of discipline for myself. Like, I will write down, I need to read for an hour when I wake up. After that, I'm going to, I got to shave my head, brush my teeth, whatever, just stuff like that. I write it all down and I make sure I attack it. So is that kind of something similar that you find yourself doing? It seems like you kind of said that yourself.
For me, I have like a ton of tools, but they weren't like, to be fair, I didn't go to them because I was like had the foresight to go to them. Every tool I have that I exercise in my life is because I have some deficiency. So like I need my schedule because I don't remember where I'm supposed to be, or I don't know what I have to do. So I put all these accountability tools in place, and it's like the discipline thing for me. It's like it's all about keeping promises to myself.
Yeah.
So when I make a promise to myself and I keep it, I'm developing myself. They say when you break a promise to yourself, you're deteriorating your confidence in your character, right? It's like a debit. When you say, hey, I'm going to do this, and you don't, right? So I like hold myself at a really high standard, and I allow, you know, I have a solid group of men that I'm vulnerable with, and I speak my word to them, and they hold me accountable for what I say I'm going to do. So find yourself a couple of people that you can tell them what you really want to do, because 9 out of 10 times you will break a promise to yourself. You might say, hey, I want to do these 6 things. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. But if you put that out in the world and share it with somebody else, and for me, I got a couple of good men I do that with, and it's really, really helpful. But yes, time for me is the number one thing I manage, because it's initially I gave away time for nothing. So initially when I started to see my schedule fill up and I started to see my demand grow based on where I needed to be, based on hours, my self-worth, or what I thought I could, the value I could bring to the world, growed in accordance to that. Right. So I made sure that, and then it became, you know, like I swung the other way. It was just too much. And then I had to find ways to, hey, can I enroll someone to help me with something? Like I want to control everything. So what I need to figure out is how I can give it to somebody else with confidence that it'll be done well. And that also takes faith.
Right. But Tim, this is a loaded question. You kind of answered it somewhat as far as needing more of you, right? Yeah. For us starting our business or building a business, when did you figure out it was time to scale, and how do you figure out when it's time to get rid of somebody and replace them?
Yeah, so a couple there's a lot in there. So I came across 2 really great books. One is called Traction by Gino Wickman, and this is about scaling a business. The other one is called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And both of these books kind of encourage you to say, like, everything that you're doing today, write it as if somebody else is going to come along and take the ball, right? Because when you attack your task like that, for one, it gives you a greater perspective of how you want it done. Because if it's just me doing it, I'll just scribble like, hey, I know how to move in these areas. But how would I write that if I had to teach somebody? That was one thing that gave me a lot of perspective. On the flip side, to enroll people, you have to have criteria. So for us, it's our core values. So we created a core value exercise, and this is how we hire, fire, recognize, and reward. When we step away from that an inch, it's very difficult to get somebody who can duplicate what we have to do, which leads to the next question. How do you know when to let somebody go, right? So I have a challenge in the idea that if you're into what I'm into, I just fucking like you because you're smart. Not really. So like,
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
So in the event that I have allowed my mind to play tricks on me, and it's time for me to make a change to the team, and it's not just team now, it's not people that work for me, it's franchise partners, it's people that I do business with, suppliers, things like that. I always tell them that I never would tell somebody I'd fire them. I would tell them that, hey, listen, we're just going to make an adjustment to our relationship, because I want to leave that person whole, because I'm going to convert that person from a staff member to a user, right? And if I do it the correct way, so like I've had lots of experiences this that led me to this, but I have to look at this person with honor, compassion, and love and empathy, and say that this dude can go be an amazing part of somebody else's team. And for every second I keep him here, I'm holding him back for what he could be, his potential, right? And so that's how I go into it, no matter how I feel. And that just frames the conversation in a way that nobody could ever argue with you, because some people aren't going to see your ways. And every time I've ended up in that situation, or I have a friction point down here, I know for a fact that it could have been fixed the way out here. It's how I framed the relationship when they came in. Like, these are my expectations. This is how we make a decision. This is a culture of feedback. If you're going this way, how do you want me to tell you? You know, like, I think knowing and understanding that sets you up for success. But there will be times when somebody's got to go. And I think that leaving them as whole as possible is a gift. And I think telling them why is a gift too, because it's feedback. If something doesn't work for me in my life, I want to know why, because maybe I'm open enough to change. and maybe you're doing me a favor.
Yeah. You know, for you too, and like listening to the way you run your business and stuff, and I see this in my business too. So I was wondering, like, now, like the day and age we live in, there's YouTube, there's the internet, like you have the ability to almost learn anything, right? So if you look at your business as a car, like you could almost learn how to fix or operate every single part of that business if you really wanted to. But the reality is that's not really realistic, right? So like in my business, I sometimes struggle with myself, like, hey, am I just being lazy by not taking the time to learn how to do this where I could just pay somebody to do it? I'm wondering, in your business, where do you implement that? How do you go about that? Where it's like, yeah, I could take the time to learn how to run this facet of my business, or I could just pay somebody to do it. Because in my view, I'm like, well, by me paying these guys who do this for a living, this aspect of my business, that opens up more time for me to do things for my business, like the stuff that I know I'm born and gifted to do, the creativity, the visions and things like that I can focus on. It's kind of like I can put all my energy into that aspect. Do you utilize that in your business as well? And do you find that important?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to just being, having to force learning some lessons, right? So there was a time I felt like that. So I would want to push things off, right? But then I met people that would leverage my lack of competency or knowledge in that area to take advantage of a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes with my friends.
Right.
Right. So what I committed to is that I will not pass something off until I have a good understanding of it. So whether it's technology and I have to go learn the syntax of how to build a back end of the thing or a website or design, like I'm going to make sure that I speak the language and have an understanding of what it takes before I ever hand it off. And that in going, it's all like business is about relationships. Now, when I talk to a developer, when I talk to a designer, I can express to him like, hey, I know a few things. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I like. Here's what I don't like. And then I had a mentor that drew a picture on a paper. He said, this is your business. This is this stuff that can kill you. That's where I need to live. So what I focus on is just really being in the nitty gritty of where the greatest opportunities are in my business. And 9 out of 10 times that's in developing people. So like, just figure out like, what your competencies are. And like, I know like there's certain things I work in my business that feel like a grind and an energy suck. And then there's other things where I can sit at Starbucks on a Sunday for 8 hours and work on and love it. Feel like I'm creating tools that are going to create impact for years to come on people becoming healthy, on families building legacy, on franchise partners earning money. Like, if you're inspired by your work, and maybe I attach big meaning to it, maybe it's irrational, but it's what drives me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And James, like you talk about, like, especially you doing all the podcasting and stuff. Do you think it's like really important to kind of put yourself out there like that, James? Like, do you think kind of like what you do, podcasting, kind of speaking it into existence? See, Tim kind of touched on that. Do you think it's kind of the same thing?
Yeah, I would say so, but I'm just I have so many questions for Tim.
I know. I was telling you. I'm like, dude. I
don't want to talk about myself, Tim.
No, I know. Yeah.
When did you? So I'm more so focused on building out a team, right? When did you really, really figure out that you needed to scale, and how did you get comfortable with that? Right. Yes. Because you're so disciplined, and yes, you said you built the core values, but was that a shaky experience in the beginning?
No, I'm going to tell you how I came to the values, and then maybe that'll help you. So I was like the king of collecting people, right? So I got my buddy. I like this guy. Let's bring him in, right? Ultimately, I ended up hiring a coach, and I said, hey, listen, you got to come in and train these people because they're fucked up. Right. And he says, no, bro, you're the one that needs the training, right? Because you don't know how to lead. You think you know how to lead because somebody else led me, and I walk like that duck. You know what I mean? So I had to really learn how to develop my leadership and have the patience and understanding to ask the right questions to navigate the outcomes I'm really looking for, find the levers that really move people, right? And for me, that book Traction, I read that. It's all about scaling a business, and there's a million of them, but I just married it. Like, hey, that's the one. And there is a 1-week meeting process that really enrolls people, enrollment. So I employ a lot of millennials, and people would give them a bad rap, which is fine. But if I get them to come up with an idea and I ask them if they'd be willing to help me build that, they will like work day and night. It's really amazing. The core value exercise worked like this. I put about 20 people in a room that were all of our people who worked at 2 different stores. And I said, hey, listen, what we're going to do is try to build our guiding principles. And what I want you to do is give me 3 names. It can be Zuckerberg, it can be your cousin Johnny, whatever it is. Each of you, I need 3 names. 20 people, got 60 names on the board. So I wrote the names and I said, these would be the people that if you attracted them into our business today, that we would blow up overnight. Right? Like, what is the names? Simon Sinek, whoever.
Right.
So we got them on the board. Then I went around one by one and I said, hey, give me 3 attributes about why you believe that to be true. Well, they're knowledgeable, they're networked, they're innovative. We just keep going through them. Boom, 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 boom. Now how many words do I got? 180. Right. Then we look at it, we start boxing them. We start putting them together, and then we pick the top 5, and then we define them in accordance to us. And we saw the top 5. The close in there is like, hey, listen, if we attracted these people and these other attributes, if we embody these attributes in everything we do, then we could have this, it'd be like being as successful as having those people with us. And like, I think it's always about painting a big picture, right? So the reality was, as I worked with some guys at a shake bar on the back of a shitty plaza, the reality is I showed up to work every day and told them we're building a mission and something big. And sometimes I believed it and sometimes I didn't. But when it reflected back to me that they believed it, it was real.
Right.
Dang. Tim, so like when you go back to kind of the time before Project Lean Nation, right? Because I would say Project Lean Nation for you, that's probably like, that's kind of like your baby that you grew. Yeah. Me and James talk about kind of an entrepreneurial journey, you know, trying to avoid dispersing your energy amongst too many things. We kind of identified that it's important to have like this initial win, right? Like as an entrepreneur, like maybe one specific thing that you really succeeded at, that you could take the success from that, whether it be momentum, energy, or maybe just money, right? Do you identify as having some sort of initial win? Like, I know that you used to work in the stock market. Do you think like essentially maybe even being just kind of pretty transparent with it? Like, what was your like initial round of like funding for Project Lean Nation and stuff like that? Like, how did you go about that?
I think if I go further back than that, for me, it was like, I just grew up in a real challenging situation. Went to 6 schools and the whole 9. So it's like through that adversity, I became good at connecting with people. So that's the move, right? So I could connect with people. Like, I started to realize that everybody's favorite subject is themselves. And I grew up in a real rough thing and I don't want to talk about myself. So I just take interest in people, authentic interest. I would be interested, not interesting, right? And that just draw people to me. And I think that was the thing that made me kind of decent at all of the other things. And then it wasn't until someone believed in me that I was good at any of it, right? So like, I lacked self-esteem. I lacked competency. I didn't feel very smart. And then when somebody else recognized that I was a connector and then breathed a little life into me, then I was moving and it didn't matter what I was pointing at. And then now in life, I go try to do that for everybody I touch, even when I check out at White Pizza. So I think like in terms of funding, like I went to federal prison. I came home on probation and paid $250,000 in fines in my sweatpants in 36 months because they said that they would let me off probation because I was going to go back to the market because I had a 3-year ban. At that time, they decided they weren't going to let me off probation, federal probation. And at that time, I was getting filled with this feeling, like I was talking about that condition of I want to do better. I want to do better for others. I had children. My faith was becoming really important to me. And any part of my life where that wasn't the center, I was a mess and I was coveting things and hiding. And I've done that in my business too. You know, so it was like I had to go through this ups and downs of this. And I think like now I just turned 43 years old. And it's like now I'm at a new level of openness, or I'm at a new level, like just even to share these things, like to tell somebody, hey, as a child I was abused, I went to prison, I've fucked up everything in my life twice. Like I didn't have the courage to share those things because I didn't want anybody to see my mess. I just painted a different color. Before you started, you said, hey, is there anything you want to hide? Now there's nothing I want to hide.
It's amazing.
Because I know if I say it out loud, I own it. And I know that it's, if I'm doing anything measurable in life and then some other young man hears that, that may give him the hope. That may give him the track. So like when I came home, I didn't have shit, but I didn't need money because I was just making some chicken. I had a home because I had worked so hard. I had a home. I came home and my federal probation officer didn't like my home. So she made me sell my home.
Wow.
Got another home, you know.
No, that's honestly, that's amazing. And I love the mindset and the way that you kind of said that. I mean, that was kind of my whole reasoning for doing what we're doing right now, the Exchange podcast. I wanted to create some sort of platform, if I could use whatever I've built online, for people to learn from people like you and hear that stuff, because that's all it takes. I mean, even the way you just said it, all it takes is one, let's say some young man who's listening and dealing with the same things, and how much that could actually change somebody's life. Just putting yourself out there is so important. It's the first conversation I had with James when I met James. It was he implemented that to me as well, how important it is to put your stuff out there so people can learn from it. And I think it's huge. So I think it's amazing that you have that mindset, and that's something I've definitely taken from you. And you know, I think James is similar, the same way with your podcast and stuff like that. So I mean, what do you think about that, James?
I feel like it's important to let people know that it's never too late, because you, like you said, you said it, you failed twice, right?
I think I've failed at friendships, marriage, business, school, fucking everything, right? So it's like, it's not about when you fall, it's about what you do next. And it's really, really hard not to bring your old stuff into your new stuff, right? So if I would encourage anybody, I would say that this is what's called adversarial growth. You know, like every strength I have today is because I faced something really challenging before. And when I see that correlation, it helps me embrace adversarial things in my life, right? Like, so when something hard comes, it's like, thank you, you know. And and if you run from it, like when you guys have children, right? So now you have children. Now it's like, my little boy was my bro. Like, I would kick him, you know, I'd beat him up a little bit. I don't want to talk about my little girl. I want to protect her from everything, right? Like, I want to.
We lost your voice there, man. We still lost you.
Oh yeah.
There we go. Gotcha.
My microphone has changed. Yeah,
you're good.
So now. Essentially, I want to protect my daughter from challenges, but really the most bold thing to do was have children, send them out into the world to break them and support them at every step of the path, right? So I think it's never too late for anybody, and really fulfillment has nothing to do with business. Like, I have done really well in business, but what I'm most proud of is what I learned and the challenges I faced and came through the other side, and the economic realities of that aren't what moved me one bit. I'm just proud of what I did. And by proud, I mean me with the support of God. Not a prideful man, just so grateful for the gifts I've been given and the opportunities that have been afforded to me.
I think one of the most important things you hit right there was the idea of kind of embracing, right? Like embracing maybe some of the choices you made in the past or the lifestyle you used to live, and also being able to kind of rebrand yourself and get away from that, right? Like, I've struggled with that in my life. I know where I came from. You know, we all have a similar background. You know, I had my problems with the law and jail and stuff like that. And in my life now, sometimes mentally, I kind of find myself kind of letting that get to me, where it's like, but I think it's really important to be able to move past that and not look at yourself as a felon or somebody who's been to prison or done this and that, because you can always change yourself. You can always better yourself. Everybody has the ability to create their own opportunity to do that. And I think that's super important. It's something it sounds like you've done too. And that kind of brings me to a question. You know, you mentioned that, you know, like you went to prison, and I feel like where I relate to that type of situation too is I almost use that time in my life almost like a match hitting a fire. So like for you, when you got out of prison, and I think honestly, when I met you, it was like a little bit after you got out of prison, but it just seemed like, just watching from the outside looking in, it just seemed like you were just a man on a mission. Like you had it, so you had this idea in your head and you were quite literally stopping at nothing to get it. And so looking back on that time now that was like, I think about 12, 13, 14 years ago for you, right? Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Like what was it that kind of lit that fire under your belly? Like now as a grown man with a successful business, when you look back, what do you think it was that gave you the motivation to really want to change your life? And what was it that lit that fire for you?
Yeah. Again, it was the pain that I had caused myself. It was the pain that I caused others. It was the time that I stole from my children. You know, and like when I was young, I mentioned school. Like in school, I had every label that had letters. You know.
Yeah.
And you know, my parents are bipolar, like I'm fighting all of them, right? And then what I found is that these same attributes that are identified as deficiencies, I really worked hard to use them as the things that fuel me. They're my power. They're my superpowers now, right?
Yeah.
So if I want to focus on something, I can focus on something so hard that I can draw all the answers to myself. And in my 30s, I found that confidence to believe that. You know, I started reading a lot of these things about, you know, like your vibe is your tribe. What you focus on, you attract. Right. So then that became like a very way, like, hey, I'm like this because I know if I look over here, I might attract something I don't want.
Yeah.
And then that changed the way that it changed my spiritual life, right? It changed what I pray for. I can't pray for things. I'm praying. I don't want to pray for things again. They might give me answers I don't want.
Of course.
I just have to say, I'm so grateful for you. You know,
yeah,
like,
of course.
I mean, like,
right.
Everything. But I think that like being focused, like soon as because you're going to believe before others believe. And if you start, if you go to the crowd and start bouncing your ideas off of them because you want somebody to affirm something to you, you're already off on the wrong foot. You just need to just run your own race like a thoroughbred racehorse. That's why they put those things on so they don't get distracted. And I think that has always served me because anytime I'm distracted, sometimes I distract myself on purpose when the depth of my work feels too big for me. Like when my voice of doubt is in my mind, like so I can check boxes all day, but when it's time for me to like rubber meet the road and I got to do some really difficult work that's like maybe outside of my competencies a little bit, I look for the distraction. So I have to ask myself, hey, like, what are you running from?
Right.
And just do my best. And often your best is pretty good.
Yeah. So I would say, so like where you're at now, right? Like, you know, from the outside looking in, we know who you are, but if you were to introduce yourself to somebody that doesn't know you, like, what do you most want to be like known for? Is this something you even, you know, take time to think about? Like, would you like to be known as the businessman, or do you more consider yourself like a more like a nutritional type of label, or is it nothing at all, or is it something completely separate?
No, I mean, I'd like I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a believer. You know, I love faith. I want to inspire people. I want to impact every community we serve. It has nothing to do with business, man.
That's amazing.
Those are just the tools I use to accomplish my stuff.
That's amazing.
You know, like, and I'm not chasing coin, and I need some because there's some things I want to experience, but nothing I want out of life can be purchased.
Yeah.
And it's easier to say that when your base shit is covered, right?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
But like I connect with people, and people are heavily investing into what was just an idea for me when I was desperate in my kitchen, slaying some chicken for my buddy, just for something to do. And it's turned into a machine. So every day I thank God for providing me a path that is kept me on track, is impactful, helps people get healthy. And like just in terms of our staff, like people who have changed as a result of serving others every day. And then now it's turning in, you know, I went from leading myself in health and business to leading others in my business, to leading others who lead others, to leading organization. Now I'm franchising. Now I'm bringing people in to develop them to do that. So I think like if there was one thing that I would love to be known for, is somebody who believes in others and does whatever it takes to develop them. That's who I am.
Amazing. Amazing. James, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Project Lean Nation, who's your main competitor?
I don't have competitors.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who I'm sure make food for people.
Okay.
I'm in the business of support and education. Food's the greatest tool in my business. So that puts me, you know, we have a really diligent consultation process that we give away to the world in efforts to provide value. And then I'm sure there's everybody who would love to be my competition, but the way I see business is I'm in the business of results.
Yeah.
And the fundamentals of my business create results.
Okay. And being that you're in the food business, this is the last question for me. How did you deal with the impact of COVID at all, if you had any impact?
Yeah, we had a ton of impact. So when COVID kicked off for the first time ever, my business had slowed down. So like I consider my business, like making a change in my business is like trying to change the tire on a car going 80 miles an hour. So the first time I had some space, and this is when I invested a year and a half in the franchise process, which is writing ops manuals, federal disclosure docs, franchise agreements, things that are way beyond my competency. But with the help of a lawyer and a writer sitting next to me, I was able to get through it. When it turned into, when we talking about our product distribution, we did face new challenges. So I'll give you a quick example of, let me give you two examples.
Okay.
One is we used to have these coolers in the stores where like 80% of our business is subscription based. 20% is retail. So if somebody comes in and grabs a few meals and a shake. Well, when COVID kicked off, they were grabbing the meals and touching the meals. So I said, all right, I'm just going to put pictures in there. Right. So instead of grabbing like 2 meals, I would just give them the sheet and now they just fill out how many they want. They couldn't even hold as many. Like that was limiting them from buying what they would actually buy.
Right.
So now our average ticket went up, right? So that's a small business win, right? Another thing is that we use these plastic containers, about 15,000 of them a week, and anything related to oil started to going up. And a year ago, myself and our director of production got together and we went and visited a place in Philadelphia who was a distributor of a packaging technology called reduced oxygen vacuum packaging. So the challenges we had in our product was moisture, freezer burn, like all this stuff, right? When they get really cold, they're brittle. So this is just an example of oftentimes the solution is in the problem, right? So the problem was the rising cost of plastic was going up. So our regular flawed packaging was going up. We were able to go out, order some machines, invested about $200,000 in the best packaging material and process there is. Took 6 months to get them, and in January 1st we kicked them off. And this packaging is, they suck all the air out. So this air is the enemy of all food, right? So the best packaging in the whole world, it has 28% less packaging, less plastic, so the cost is lower. That cost was mitigated and moved over to invest in business assets. And essentially, well, that was the goal. Essentially, the cost of oil continued to go up, but essentially we broke even with an amazing product. So like, it leveled up my product like 60% for a 4% increase in our costs.
Wow.
So I think that like, I think it's about like how you look at it. And like, I'm not responsible for running around and trying to buy chicken over here and going over there. Those guys are having a hard time with that.
Right.
But I just tell them I got my own problem to solve.
It's a great way to look at it, man. And I envy that position of getting to that point in business, but that's cool, man. But well, I'm not surprised. In business,
as you go, the challenges that you get to solve will become more interesting to you.
Yeah.
Like 3 years ago, I had my finger in every hole in the bottom of the boat and we're sinking. You know what I mean? So like now, like as it goes, your capacity to solve something becomes much higher because you solve those other problems. Yeah. And the things that you identify as opportunities are much more interesting.
No, yeah, and it's cool. James, I'm glad you asked that because like Tim, for somebody like Tim, he's just always been somebody that I've seen that you seem like you just love challenges. Like you've always been an absolute machine when it comes to challenges. That's something that you just bulldoze through. And I think the best part about challenges, especially in business and stuff like that, is what you learn on the when you come out from them. You know what you learn from them. So I think that's really cool. And I'm not surprised to hear that you just bulldoze through all the complications that COVID gave everybody with everybody's business. So that's really cool to hear. But yeah, man, Tim, you know, not only are you crazy successful when it comes to Project Lean Nation, you are like literally the perfect candidate of the type of people we like to have on here. I personally think you should be doing some sort of like public speaking or something like that. I know you're super busy and you know, where I relate to, it seems like you really value kind of more of your own personal morals and values, like time with family and stuff like that, which is really cool. And the older I get, the more I'm starting to jump onto that too. I've gone through stuff like that in my life recently too. So if you ever have the time though, you should jump into some sort of public speaking or something, man. I think you crush it and you're just always been an absolute machine and just full of knowledge. So it's really cool to have you on here and give us all that too. So I'm not sure. Did you lose me again? Yeah, we lost you again. Did we
there we go. I'm back.
There we go. But yeah, no. So,
I can answer that quickly. Here's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm just gonna for now I'm gonna lead others in health, and one day I'm gonna lead souls to Christ and be a preacher. That's my
That's amazing. It's amazing, man. I can see you doing that. But yeah, man. So Tim, seriously, thank you so much for your time to come on here. Again, like I said, I told you, James, this guy's an absolute machine when it comes to all this stuff. So very cool to have you on here. Thanks a lot. For all those that are interested, Project Lean Nation, your website's projectleannation.com, right?
That's correct.
You guys are available worldwide and all that stuff too?
Mostly.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, yeah, nationwide, of course. Yeah, that's what I meant. But yeah, so check out Tim at projectleannation.com. Other than that, on Instagram, you're at PLN Tim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm Chris Daviar, James Uplifting Edwards, Tim Dougherty. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. All right.
James,
Thanks.
nice to meet you. Have a great day.